What are the lessons for the wider camp world that we can all take from performing arts camps?
This is CampHacker. Come find our show notes and our blog for camp directors and leaders at camphacker.tv.
Camp leaders, win back your time to what matters most, your campers. Bolin's comprehensive accounting back office solutions and tech-enabled team free up your staff to focus on your mission. Visit bolinhq.com to learn more and book a free 2-hour financial diagnostic.
Remember what sparked your passion for camp? Ultra Camp knows it's about the people, not the paperwork. That's why they built a platform to simplify your camp management. Learn more at ultracampmanagement.com/camphacker. Hello, Camp Mavericks, and welcome to the CampHacker podcast, brought to you by Ultra Camp, Bolin, and the ultimatecampresource.com. My name is Travis Allison. I am a summer camp communications consultant, and I specialize in solving this problem I hear from every camp director: parents don't read.
Hi, everyone. My name is Chris Hudson. I'm a former camp director of Camp Highlight Sleepaway Camp for kids who have LGBTQ parents, currently a camp consultant, traveling around making sure that every camp environment is accepting and welcoming of anyone, regardless of how they identify.
I'm Carolyn Daniels. I am the Arts and Education Program Director at the Meridan YMCA in Meridan, Connecticut, which I've been for over 15 years at camp. I have been the musical theater camp director for the past 15 years.
My name is Theo Lencicki. I am the artistic director for the Broadway Education Alliance in New York City, and also the artistic director with Camp Broadway, presenting camps all over the country.
Theo and Carolyn, thank you so much for being here. This is a topic that is very personal to me, and I'm excited to go into it today. But before we get into the topic, I just want to spend a second. Theo, what's your connection to camp?
So I was a performer for a very long time, went to college for it, loved it, worked professionally on a bunch of national tours, which was a lot of fun. I actually had a knee injury. I tore my ACL and I went back home to Pennsylvania and became a counselor for a local arts program that I used to attend, a camp called Arts Alive, which was phenomenal and still kicking to this day. So I kind of got into the door of arts education and the camp world that way, from attending to then being a counselor and then a faculty member of the program, which again, I am still currently a faculty member there as well, in addition to all the work that I do at Camp Broadway. So it kind of was an interesting way to come from a camper to then counselor to then faculty member, and now envisioning our own programming and seeing the worth and the value of all of those things that I learned as a kid, and then instilling those values and with the new generation of theater lovers and theater goers. And camp is an extremely important thing to advocate for all of these wonderful tools that these kids are learning. So that's kind of where I began.
Well, we're grateful to have you on CampHacker. Thanks, Theo. Carolyn, how about you? What's your camp story?
So I attended musical theater camp in San Jose, California, the Meridan Youth Theater, right? The San Jose Children's Youth Theater. And I always wanted to do that. And so when I moved to Connecticut, I started at the Y and I was a lifeguard, and I would watch the musical theater camp. And I said, I really do that. That's what I do. And then the director came up to me and said, would you like to take over this program? So we went from having 10 kids to we serve about 150 now over the course of our summer in different ones. So that's how I got into musical theater camp. I'm a musical theater kid at heart.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, I appreciate the both of you being here, and we want to spend some time. We've hinted at a couple of things in the intros we'll come back to afterwards, but for our discussion today, I want to talk about what camps and camp people can learn from performing arts camp. I'm going to start with my own story. As a kid growing up, pretty badly bullied until I got tall. I didn't really feel like I had a place until I found camp. And camp certainly made me feel accepted, and it gave me a place to feel comfortable. And that 6 days a year of camp sustained me through the whole time. When I was my second last year of high school, our high school principal recruited a new drama teacher, and her job was to bring back musicals to our school. And it'd been a big musical program when I was a kid, and I remember going to her school. And so our first musical was Grease, and by complete fluke, I ended up being Danny Zuko. And I'm not much of a singer, but I had some great instructors and coaches, and uh, Grease Lake Camp was a massive impact on my life. And I went on to be in Seven Brides for Seven Brothers the next year. And yeah, so had a huge impact. And so I'm so super grateful for this topic. It means a lot to me. I've had some wonderful discussions with Susan about Camp Broadway, which we'll talk about at the end specifically. But what do you think other camps can get out of bringing in a performing arts program or even small pieces of performing arts? I know lots of camps have coffee houses or little talent shows or do kind of off the cuff productions or quick production. But what do you think the big lessons are for other camps? Carolyn, I'm going to start with you if you don't mind, please.
The big lessons for camp, it really gives our kids an opportunity just to do musical theater all day, every day for 2 weeks. It's really hard during the school year because it's so choppy. We meet every Saturday. Our particular theater meets every Saturday, but this really helps us become a family and a community because we are doing what we love from the minute we wake up until the minute we go to sleep together. We're learning from each other. We're learning the show, but not only we're learning the show, we're learning the lessons about what do you do at camp? How do you play at camp? How do you play? How do you just enjoy what you're doing with people who love what they do? And that's what we do. We do what we love and we love what we do. And that is our motto at the Meridan Youth Theater. But that's really what it is. And we're helping each other out. And our older kids are helping our younger kids. In our particular theater, the Meridan Youth Theater, it helps us to train more staff because we are very much internalized. So we have a CIT program where our counselors in training are working with our younger 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8-year-olds, and they're establishing relationships. So then all of those relationships are actually helping us to establish chemistry for when we do shows. So I actually didn't even think about that till I started saying that. I'm like, oh my gosh, they're establishing their relationships. And then when we see them audition and put them in a show, they already have that connection. They have a personal connection. So I think camp really helps us to do that, to build a family and also to build a production in kind of a backstage door kind of way. So
That's perfect. Thank you. Theo, have you found that there is something that happens? I mean, I obviously shared my own story, but is there something that happens when kids get this kind of opportunity?
Absolutely. I think exposure to the performing arts, our ideology at Camp Broadway is focusing on the ensemble. And I think we are meeting all students at different levels of where they are at. And I think focusing on the ensemble builds a community within the individuals, not only attending, but also the artists that are instructing and the camp counselors and the faculty members that are teaching the musical theater curriculum. So I think I have seen, as you mentioned, so many people come in that are timid, that their parents sign them up or their grandparents sign them up, and they don't really know what they're in for. But at Camp Broadway, especially, and I know a lot of other programs, it's not really about the next generation of performers. It's about the next generation of art appreciators, performing arts appreciators. And so therefore, any small experience that they have or any exposure that they have through the performing arts, it's helping them build social, emotional skills, all these things into one, not only just learning how to sing and dance, but also connecting with other people that have like interests or exploring other assets of the performing arts, like technical theater and the backstage, what goes on behind there, and stage management, and even arts administration. It's almost a full package. So I think focusing on community and seeing from day one of a camp or a program to day 5 or day 20, however long the camp runs for or however long the program runs for, the evolution of each student is so different, and the takeaway is just incredible to watch that happen.
Yeah. And I think performance in its own way is like camp to the nth degree. All of the lessons of camp, confidence, communication, problem solving, community, all of those things, even dialed up even higher than it is for other camps. Chris, what do you think? Well, from your camp director perspective, but certainly from your social worker perspective, what tools this gives kids?
So I'm a theater kid who was never a theater kid. They were all my friends. Even today, people are like, "Wait, you weren't in theater?" I'm like, "No, I just like to be the center of attention." But it's certainly not. It's certain. I think about this all the time. It's
Yeah.
certainly not an accident that I ended up in a job where I get on stage and people applaud me. Like, there's definitely something there. But what does this give kids? I think a lot about specialty camps, or I go to a lot of specialty camps, and some of them I have to be convinced of the value of it, which is, and we won't say anything else about that. But the two things that I think are really the two specialty camps I really enjoy are like sports camps and arts camps. Why? Mostly, I mean, I can go down a list, but mostly it's the teamwork element. Learning how to work in a team, learning how to communicate with each other, learning how to solve problems on your own without adult intervention rather. I think that is the most important thing. Coming from my perspective as camp director, at Camp Highlight, that's where we're constantly drilling into the children nonstop. How do you think for yourself? How do you live in community? How do you solve your problems without having to run crying to an adult? Like how do you stand up straight? How do you find your backbone? And I think especially with acting, especially with, I mean, listen, getting on stage is in and of itself is such an achievement. So many people suffer from like, oh my gosh, everyone's looking at me. And who suffers the most from that? Children. They think everyone is looking at them all the time. So to put them on stage, it's already an evolution of their character. It's getting over something. I don't even care. I don't even care like what kind of kid you are. It's not easy to get up in front of your peers and sing and dance or act or put on a funny voice. I know this because I was a camp counselor. I had to do all of that stuff. And I'm mean today, but when I was 19, I wasn't quite this person. And it was the continued exposure to this kind of presentation, this presentational thing that we do that has made me this person. And it's been super valuable. And I think what you guys are doing is really fantastic. I'm wondering though, like you'd said, like some kids come and their parents just signed them up. Like I'm really curious about those kids. Like those kids who like this wasn't their first choice. What does that look like for them over the course of the program? Like what are the outcomes like? This is my
I think
social worker research brain. I'm curious.
I think for those students or those campers that come to us that are a little bit more timid, a little bit more reluctant, it's I think those are the transformations that are the most meaningful to us because they came to us, some of them scared, timid, not wanting to be a part of it, and then they realize similarities that they have with other campers. They find their tribe, they find the people that they relate to, or they find something within the material that they're learning that they like. I mean, like if we're exploring, let's say Annie. Oh, I didn't know X, Y, and Z about this story, and Annie's a story that we've all known and grown up with, most of us, for that matter. So I think just seeing those students, there's a moment or that clicks where they're like, oh, like I'm accepting this and I'm enjoying this and I am getting so much more out of this than just being fearful of being on stage, as you said, Chris, in front of my peers, and that being an uncomfortable and turning the uncomfortable feeling into something to celebrate and something of joy. And I think those are the transformations from beginning to end that I enjoy the most. And not to say that I don't love seeing the kids that come in year after year who this is their bread and butter and they love being it. They love being on stage. So I think, and we have been reached out to for at Camp Broadway of past campers who said, listen, I want nothing to do with the performing arts, but having this experience gave me such a perspective in my adult years that I love going to Broadway shows and I love supporting the arts, visual and performing. So it's just, again, creating this community for a generation of the next arts appreciators. And that's the circle continues.
I always think that three things that all children should experience is one, dance class, two, some sort of public speaking thing, and three, exposure to another language. It just changed the way your brain works. And I'm a huge fan of what you're doing, but I think especially, I mean, I'm a public speaker that's my role, my job. And when I work with like, young people who are trying to develop this skill, like starting from zero is hard. When you're 22 and you don't have the skill to talk in front of people, that's really hard, especially like in this era where things are so presentational. where people are making YouTube videos and TikToks and explaining things and presenting themselves and their brand, as it were. It's a necessary skill and something you can pick up early, especially from like a theater program like yours.
For some kids, though, it doesn't come until later on. One of my directors that works with me now, I taught him all through his life, and he didn't start his theater until he was in high school. And it was like something went off in his head, and he is now an incredible tapper, and he's teaching people to tap. And he didn't do any of that as a child. And we all go up to him and say, "Where have you been?" Because, and now he sees the value of it as sharing as a child or sharing it as they are younger and building up with that. And I think, Theo, going back to what you said, the question was kids for the first time. That's why I like Camp Broadway My Way so much, because it does focus on the ensemble and it's not scary when you're doing it with everybody. Most of the kids that come to us now have seen their friends do it and they go, I want to be a part of that. And then, so if you start with something as simple as, okay, you're all going to do this together, then it isn't so scary. And what we hear more often from the parents now is my kid has found their people. They're finding their people. And that isn't scary. And it's such a beautiful thing because parents will say, well, my other kid does sports and everybody's doing this and everybody's doing that. And it's not my child. And I'm hoping this will be. And they do. They do. It's really, especially too now, a lot of kids who have special needs. We're seeing a lot more kids with special needs come through our program because they're looking for their people that get them. And theater brings out that in everybody. So it's really wonderful to see.
I appreciate that story about the person you work with, Carolyn, the tapper. It reinforces a life lesson that I want camp people to think about all the time. Is it doesn't matter when you start; it just matters that you start. And that's, I mean, it's such a preaching to the choir in this room, but certainly in the people that are listening, that camp is just a place of new things, but a safe place to try new things. And this is going on to adding a different, another level to this. When I think about this kind of experience for kids, I do some work in the entrepreneurial world, and one of the biggest piece of advice is definitely have to get into doing presentations and practice that and figure that out. And one of the big standard pieces of advice is you should go to Toastmasters and practice this kind of thing. But this is like what we're offering here is a fun version of Toastmasters. Like you get a safe place to experience things, you get a safe place to try out different methods, different versions of a character. But even where I think is a thing that a lot of camp people can appreciate is seeing kids try on their own different characters, not being on stage, but trying it like this year I'm this until they sort of figure it out. And I always love that part of being a camp leader. One of the other things that comes up for me in terms of the people listening is in days when there were a lot more people interested in working at summer camp, it's a little harder to find the folks right now. But I think it's nice for camp directors to have a shortcut for who to watch to hire for camp, who will be the people who will be good leaders, compassionate leaders, and involved leaders at camp. And I think looking for some form of arts background is a big part of that because I think it shows creativity, obviously, but tenacity in a huge way. And I always had kind of the things I'm looking for on a resume of a young adult to say to me that I can just accept that they'll be good camp people, kids who grew up on farms, kids who did elite sports, and kids who did performing arts. They're just like, yep, I know where you're going.
Our best counselors were actors or like Broadway people. Those were our best counselors. Yeah, for sure. Because they understood that we're putting on a show. That was really critical because like at the end of the day at camp, we're putting on a show for the kids. Even it doesn't matter what your camp is. That's why they're coming. And that understanding, like we search for actors. Like we go to like colleges, like arts programs, say, hey, do you want to come work at our camp? Because like that piece of it, we don't have to run them up on that. They're already there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to jump in because I'm going to share my most favorite story ever. So I have been running that theater program up at camp for a very long time. And we have a program at camp called Special Talent Tuesday. And forever ago, this little boy who was 7 came up and sang his song. And I went up to him and I said, "You should be in musical theater because you just have the presence." And he joined musical theater and he was with us during the summer and during the school year as well. And he now is our camp director. I passed the torch on from being the camp director because I was the pastor to him. And he is a theater person and he looks towards the group that he was in during the summer for counselors because he knows what it takes to be that person, to stand up in front of people and to be able to be comfortable and to put on a show. Like you said, Chris, we're putting on a show every single day, but also giving confidence to the kids and giving them self-esteem and really allowing them to be who they are in a safe space. And they see that. And everybody knows Brian was in our musical theater, and a lot of our camp directors, our camp counselors have been in our shows. So it's a good place. Musical theater, it's not just about performing. It's about lots of other skills you're getting to be a good human person in society.
I was hoping you'd tell that story, Carolyn, so thank you.
It's my
It's a great one.
favorite. I cry
Mhm.
every time he says he gets us together because I know how he was made. I watched it happen. I mean, it wasn't all just us. There's a good part of him that was it, but
Mhm.
you see that kid, and I think that's a good thing too about camp directors or theater directors. You have to be able to see what a kid is going to be, not what they are.
Yeah.
And that is that's the talent.
Yeah. So I wonder if we could, in the last little section of the discussion here, think about camps that don't have a performance section or a performance program. What are the little things that they can do to begin to make their camps or their campers, their staff, just begin to experience these things without feeling like they end up having to put on something on stage at the end of a session?
I think what's really great is there's one of two things that are kind of happening right now. I think that there are camp programs like sleepaway camps, summer camps, even camps happening throughout the year that are afraid of putting on or the magnitude of, as you mentioned, a full production or a full show, or they know or they're identifying the need for it, but they're not necessarily going about it the right way, in the sense that, I mean, we all know there's rights, there's things that are authorized, there are all sorts of things. So for us at Camp Broadway, we're partnering with MTI now, and Carolyn mentioned it earlier, doing a program called Camp Broadway My Way, which is authentic, it's authorized, it's accessible. So it really is a fully packaged program so that these camps can do it their way. We give everything soup to nuts, from choreography to staging charts to activities to scripts to things for kids involved in technical theater and lighting and scenic design. And you could do as much or as little as you'd like, but the key thing and the key factor that we have kind of focused in on is it's authorized and it is accessible for all. So if you are someone at a camp who says our sleepaway camp doesn't have a performing arts component, or we really want to include it, but we don't even know where to begin, this is, and Camp Broadway has this program, Camp Broadway My Way, which we're launching this summer, that it's so specifically isolated to, like, this can help you. You don't have to be a pro. You could be an amateur. You could be a parent. You could be someone that just has the spark and idea that knowing that musical theater and performing arts education is of value to your program, and we give you all of the tools. So I would say, starting small, the versions of these shows are only like 20 to 30 minutes. So again, it's not a 2.5-hour production that's extremely intimidating, but I would say my advice would be to start small, sing a song, do a dance, bring in, as Chris said, some of the best counselors he's hired were actors. Bring in an actor, bring in a performer to work with your students. If it takes the spark, you will see these students gravitate towards these people, because as you said, Chris, you're putting on a show, right? You want these kids to be entertained and fulfilled and get as much out of it as they can. So long story short, start somewhere small, and you'll see it's like planting a seed. You're going to see those seeds grow into full garden. So
Amazing. What do you think are good starting spots?
I would say the same thing, a Special Talent Tuesday. That's
Yeah.
really how ours started, is Special Talent Tuesday. And a lot of the counselors at camps are kids that do musical theater. or theater in general. And you don't even have to hire someone professional. It's cool. But if you have a kid who's done a show in a local community and they dress up as a part that they played and they go to the kids, even the Disney princesses, you are starting them right there. And those little kids say, I want to do that. And then you already have your person, your staff person, because they're going to jump right into it. And as long as they have the tools, I mean, we have a program called Backyard Broadway, which we write by ourselves. And a lot of camps do that. And it's geared towards our little kids. Grab a book, any book, and you can make it into some type of show that's 20 minutes long. But the kids are up there dancing and pretending, and it's all about just beginning somewhere. Just start. It's not scary if you just start small. Less is more, in my opinion, and that's why I like the ensemble versions of shows, because it's not scary. It's
Also,
authentic.
you don't have to, don't start so big. The thing that's really popular is improv. Because the kids will do improv because it's fun and they don't realize they're putting on a performance. Like Travis, the waiter. If you don't know the improv game, The Waiter, Travis, we did that at Tri-State. They love that game and they can't wait to get up there and do their thing. And in doing it, they're still building the skill. Like kids who are afraid to get on stage are now like clamoring to do it so they can say stuff. And while they're up there, we coach them. Make sure that you're facing us so we can hear you. Don't turn your back. It's like all these things that are going to be useful to them later. So like, even if it's not an arts camp, you can always introduce something. So to prepare the kids to present. I don't know if I'm overvaluing presentation skills because of what I do, but still, you don't think so? You don't think so, Travis? I
don't think you're overvaluing it. I think you're properly valuing it.
Okay, cool. I think I'm properly valuing it just because in my world, a lot of people have to speak a lot of the time. And I think that happens in a lot of places. Not everyone's down for public speaking, but you need to be able to stand up and say something without crying.
Yeah, you do. You have to present all the time, everywhere, somehow. And you have to be able to do it with conviction and confidence and comfortableness, which you can watch. I'm watching all of you. We're all comfortable because it's just part of who we are, because somewhere along the line, very, very many years ago, we all said, hey, you know what? We like to be in the center of the spotlight. We like people watching us, but it's become more comfortable to us. And that's what we're doing with children, is making them comfortable in their own skin so that they can get up there and just say anything.
This to me brings up one of the most important things I hope that everybody in the camp world takes from CampHacker ever, is that a lot of these stories begin with a kid being noticed by an adult, and an adult saying, I think you'd be good in this. Just step into this group. And that act of being noticed and appreciated can have lifelong repercussions. But I think that even if you're not a camp that's thinking about how do we put on a show or how do we put on a musical in particular, but bigger things, like if you can get kids to just stand up in front and do things together in a group, make an announcement, teach a song, even just sing along. But if they are facing the whole group as their starting point, you don't even know where that could lead. Them being shy, but having the power of the group, and then gradually over time getting more comfortable with those things. You just don't know how many amazing places that could lead.
You could become the camp director someday.
You could. You totally.
Listen,
Yeah.
that's completely fair. That is totally fair. It's such I mean, being a camp director involves a lot of skills, but definitely it's people skills. It's togetherness and it's people skills. So absolutely.
Exclusive to CampHacker listeners. Generate fresh ideas for activities, staff training, marketing campaigns, and more with UltraCamp's plug-and-play AI prompt guide. Download it for free at ultracampmanagement.com/CampHacker. Why struggle with multiple systems when one can do it all? UltraCamp offers a platform that simplifies your work by combining all aspects of camp management into one seamless solution. UltraCamp brings everything you need into one easy-to-use platform. Plan schedules and activities with just a few clicks. Register and track campers easily organize, schedule, and automate your communications. Manage payments and donations seamlessly. Get back to what you love. UltraCamp helps you spend less time on admin tasks and more time creating unforgettable camp experiences. Ready to see if UltraCamp is the perfect fit? Schedule your free personalized demo at ultracampmanagement.com/CampHacker.
Camp leaders, are you bogged down with bookkeeping, accounting, and other back office tasks? Does it take precious time away from what matters most, your campers? Imagine a solution that frees up your staff to focus on creating impactful and memorable experiences for your campers. That's where Bolin comes in. Bolin offers comprehensive accounting back office solutions designed specifically for camps. Our tech-enabled team handles everything from payroll and bookkeeping to financial reporting, compliance, expense management, spend control, and more, allowing your staff to passionately pursue your number one purpose. With Bolin, you can streamline your camp's financial operations, reduce stress, and ensure your team is free to make a lasting impact in your campers' lives. It's time to win back your time and work with a financial partner that truly understands camps. Whether you're a for-profit, nonprofit, overnight, or day camp, Bolin has a solution for you. Visit bolinhq.com to learn more and book a free 2-hour financial diagnostic. The report is yours whether you sign up or not. Let Bolin take care of your accounting needs so you can focus on what truly matters, your campers.
Excellent. Well, I thank you both for your thoughts on this, and Chris for, of course, adding your wisdom in. We've mentioned Camp Broadway My Way, and we're going to come back to that, I promise, after our Tool of the Week.
Tool of the Week.
So for those of you who've followed Theo and Carolyn here, our Tool of the Week is something that each of us brings that helps us be a better camp director. It can be related to the topic. It doesn't have to be. I am going to start us off today. My Tool of the Week is a tiny little, almost cell phone-sized photo printer called the Canon IV2 that you basically have to print photos from your phone. It's battery powered. It prints off little 2x3 photos that are also stickers. And I meant to grab it and to bring it here, but I have taking a little notebook around with me that I now have photos of cool things that I've been to, but most importantly, the people that I've been there with. And I think it's such an interesting opportunity for camp staff to just have that around, or as a camp leader to have that and take pictures with the kids that have a conversation with you just for you to remember. But I think it's really fun to go back 5 minutes later and just slip them one of the stickers of the photo of them and their friends, or you and them. I think it's a really cool opportunity. So that's the Canon IV2 photo printer. You can find the link to this and everybody else's tools at camphacker.tv/podcast, where you can find our show notes. Theo, what's your tool?
My tool for the Tool of the Week is an app that I use all the time with Camp Broadway, as well as artist in residence programs that I do. It's an app called Stage Right. That's right with a WRITE. Stage Right is super, super helpful, not only in the performing arts theater world, but also for assemblies, for any general camp needs. So what it is the app kind of allows you to create characters, whether circles, squares, diamonds, and then you kind of create a stage. You can add set pieces, you can add anything to the proper dimensions of what your facility, space, theater, room that you're performing in or presenting in. And you kind of can drag the little people into the formations and create new charts. So what we do for Camp Broadway is we kind of, for every song or production number that we do within a show title, they have our Stage Right charts that go along with it. So anyone that's viewing a choreography video, everything aligns and matches up on the Stage Right app with the charts that we provide. So it's a really great tool for not only directors, choreographers, but also in the camp world. It's really great because it not only can be used for, you can use those little icons. I mean, even if you're doing an awards presentation or at the end of camp or a coffee house, everybody's a little different color. You can name them and move them around, and it's super beneficial. So again, you could find that on the App Store, Stage Right, right with a W, and it's really great. And I know a lot of people that use it in camp and in performing arts and swear by it, as do I.
Amazing. Thank you, Theo. Chris, what's your tool?
So I'm old enough to remember when I was a child using crayons, and there was the crayon that was marked flesh, which I didn't understand why, because it certainly didn't match my flesh. So that's that's where this idea starts. You have any idea? It was decades after that I realized that Band-Aids are that color because it's supposed to blend in with white people's skin tone. I
Mhm.
just thought this is the medical color. Like I just assumed. And recently I've gotten a bunch of Band-Aids that match my skin tone, and I couldn't stop looking at my fingers. I couldn't stop. I was like, oh my gosh, like representation matters, options matter, diversity is important. Like it's a really powerful thing to be able to like see yourself in anything, like a simple, cheap, typical medical device, like if we call that, to be able to match that, I think is really important. It was really important to me. So I'm going to recommend Browndages, which is a weird name, but they are a company that makes Band-Aids for all skin tones. So check that out.
Perfect.
Yes, the Band-Aid brand does do all skin tones as well, but Brownages is a small Black-owned business, and I'm trying to send business their way.
Right. Great. And Band-Aid brand should have thought of that years ago. So let's send them to Brownages instead. Carolyn, what's your tool?
Hey, so I thought about it and I'm going to give a little spin on it with theater. One of the things that we do at camp is using an app called Goose Chase. I don't know if you've heard of Goose Chase, but Goose Chase is great. It's an interactive game that you can play with teams. And what you do is you set up all of these interactive scavenger hunts that you can do at your camp. And because we're a theater group, you can do, okay, go to this tree and put on a small song, and then you have to videotape it and it goes into the Goose Chase and so the person who's watching it. And so you can competing against each other for points and things like that. And it really is quite fun. And you can do, like I said, put on both a camp spin as well as a theater spin. And it's just a really fun app to use. So goosechase.com, check it out.
That's great. Thank you all for that. I want to take just a second. We've alluded to this cool program from Camp Broadway called Camp Broadway My Way. In full disclosure, Camp Broadway My Way is a client of mine, but we brought on Theo and Carolyn to talk about their experiences with setting up this program and to let folks know that Camp Broadway My Way is doing some pilots this summer. Camps kind of get involved now at the very beginning of this, and we'll be heading out to some very big, much more exposure, many more camps involved for summer 2026, but there's really no limit to camps that get involved this year. Thea, what's the thing that camps will get out of Camp Broadway My Way if they have a beginning interest in running musical theater?
Yeah, I
Thanks.
think Camp Broadway My Way has been in the works for a few years now. We're partnering with MTI, which is a very well-known licensing house, and they've been wonderful with us. So we really saw the need for camp programs like Camp Broadway My Way, which are these 20 to 30-minute versions of the shows, to expose after-school programs in camps with this musical theater exposure. And it's been really incredible to see the feedback. We did a few pilot programs last year. Carolyn's program was one of them. We're adding a bunch more pilot programs this year as well. And you can go to campbwaymyway.com to sign up for more information for the official launch that's happening this summer. The things that they're going to get out of it, I mean, like I said earlier in the podcast, we have soup to nuts, right? And we called it My Way specifically to not be intimidating, to say there's no way that you can mess this up because you're doing it your way. Every program and organization has different needs, different talents, different staff. So we're setting all of those individuals up through our programming, soup to nuts, with everything they need to be successful. And I also mentioned it's authorized. So we went directly to the estates and the authors and the composers of these shows to say, hey, there's a need for this. Kids want to know all about these shows that you have written or that your grandparents have written, or all of these things. They should know it's history, and a part of that is performing it and continuing its legacy. And they wholeheartedly were all in. And so we're developing 5 shows currently with our initial package. Those 5 shows are Guys and Dolls, How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying, Annie, Shrek the Musical, and Seussical. So those are our 5 initial launches of the Camp Broadway My Way show titles. And we are hoping to develop more as the years come out and roll out more. And again, the feedback from our pilot programs have been incredible. So much enthusiasm around us including more technical activities and aspects for those that are non-performance based skills. So we're really excited about it all. You're going to get everything and more in a non-intimidating way. Camp Broadway wants everybody to be successful. So we're really excited about the launch of this.
Yeah, it's a pretty amazing program. Carolyn, what did your camp community get out of piloting Camp Broadway My Way?
Everything that Theo just said and more. What I really appreciated about it is it's non-intimidating to the campers because it does focus on the ensemble. You are putting a show together as an entire community and a group. You don't have to worry about, oh my gosh, I didn't get that lead, or I really wanted that. Everybody is telling the story and learning about this story and getting up their moment in the spotlight. They're getting their time to shine, and they're all doing it together on equal playing fields, which I think is really, really important, especially if you are bringing new kids in or establishing the new Broadway learner. They're learning that a show is an ensemble. You have to appreciate that first before you can get into the other parts. And that's what I really liked. And also the fact that there was tools that we could use that we hadn't used before. Great apps for the music, and it said, okay, here's the story behind this, and here's how you can do costumes, and the kids could come up with their own costumes, or you could come up with your own backgrounds, or it was just great. The kids loved it. It was very kid friendly too.
Yeah, so when I encourage every camp to check this out if you have any interest in creating a performing arts program, or you have one already. I am incredibly impressed with the depth and thoughtfulness that is the intention really that has gone into this. So check out Camp Broadway My Way. If you go to camphacker.tv/podcast, you'll see the links, and we'll also put it in the Go Camp Pro newsletter too. We'll send out some information there. I want to thank the 3 of you for being here today. Theo and Carolyn for joining us for the first time. It's great to have you on CampHacker. Chris, if people want to follow up, how do they get in touch?
Did you check your pockets? I might be in there. No, really. You can email me, planetchris@gmail.com. You can go to my website, planetchris.net, or you can follow me on Instagram @planetchris1.
Thank you, sir. Good show. Thank you, Theo.
No, thank you so much for having us. Again, we look forward to hopefully reaching a greater audience with Camp Broadway My Way. So any platform to talk about it and the benefits. And I mean, at the core of it, it's about the kids, right? It's about the kids learning new skills, working together, finding their people, as Carolyn said. So we're really excited about it. So check us out.
Thanks for being on CampHacker, Theo. Carolyn, how can people follow up?
First, I'm just going to say, just start somewhere. And you never know where you're going to end up. You never know where your kids are going to end up. Start somewhere. If you want to get in touch with me, go to MeridanUtheater.com. Check us out, and you can find me there. Carolyn C. Daniels at MeridanYMCA.org.
Wonderful. Thanks, Carolyn.
Thanks.
One last thing before we go, I want to encourage everybody to go to their podcast apps and search for another Go Camp Pro show called The Pudding. The Pudding is our show talking about camp research and how it applies to camps. We're talking with people doing university doctorate level research on all sorts of aspects of camps, and we're breaking it down so it's easy for you to understand, to use the research in your own promotions of camps and your program development. I host that with Dr. Mandy Baker. So if you go to your apps, search for The Pudding, you'll find that there. Thanks for the evening, friends.
The Camp Hacker podcast is brought to you by Beth and Travis Allison, summer camp leadership training and marketing consultants. Thanks for listening.
Hey Camp Pros, we love that our industry is built on sharing. In order to foster that spirit, if you've gotten even one good idea from a Go Camp Pro podcast, a masterclass, from the Summer Camp Pros group on Facebook, at a conference, or wherever else, we ask that you give credit where credit is due. That way, we can encourage camp pros to keep freely sharing their brilliant ideas and make the camp industry better. Thanks very much.